let me turn to China. You served as Indian ambassador from 2013 to 2015, so you know that country well. When I was ambassador, it seemed that despite the difficulties at times in the relationship, it had reached a certain equilibrium. There were informal summit meetings between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi. And then suddenly in 2020, I think everyone was caught by surprise when China crossed over the line of actual control, amassed 50 to 60,000 troops there with heavy artillery and building and infrastructure. Is it ever become clear as to exactly what their objective was and is? And how do you see the realistic India-China relationship going forward? And what impact has China's behavior had on India's activities in the region?
Well, Ken, one of the pleasures of dealing with China is that they never quite tell you why they do things. So you often end up trying to figure it out, and it's always, there's a certain ambiguity out there. What had happened, I was ambassador from 2009, immediately after the global financial crisis, till 2013. So I saw the change of guard in China, and then I came to the US after that. Now, it's never been an easy relationship. It's always had its share of problems. It's had a war in 1962. It's had military incidents after that. But after 1975, there's never been a loss, there's never been a combat fatality on the border. 1975 was the last time. In 1988, we in a sense normalized the relationship more when Rajiv Gandhi, who was then the Prime Minister, went to China. In 93 and 96, we did 2 agreements with China to stabilize the boundary, and the boundary, by the way, is disputed. So there's a negotiation going on. So the line of actual control, it was agreed that neither of us would actually mass troops there, and if we brought more than a certain number of troops, we would inform the other side. So it was pretty explicit the way it was laid out. There have been subsequent agreements after that, one in 2005 and one in 2012. So it was actually, in many ways, a very unique situation because what would happen in the boundary areas is troops on either side would step out from their military bases. They had designated bases where they were. They would do their patrolling, come back to the bases. If they happened to intersect somewhere, there were very clear rules about how they would conduct themselves, and use of firearms was prohibited. So this is how it was from really till 2020. Now, in 2020, when we were in the middle of our COVID lockdown, at that time, China actually had managed to get the first wave of COVID behind them. We saw that Chinese troops in very large numbers were moving towards the line of actual control. And by, normally, I'm guessing now here, that it would have been very difficult when you are in the middle of a COVID lockdown, because our COVID lockdown was complete. I mean, the country, it was like a ghost city or cities. People, the airports were shut down, the railway was shut down. So in the middle of all of that, we actually had to mobilize and counter deploy, which we did. And then we had a situation where we were understandably worried that the troops are now much too close. And we cautioned the Chinese that such a situation could create problems, and sure enough, in middle of June in 2020, it did. So we had a clash in which 20 of our soldiers died. They claim that 4 of their soldiers died. So that's again, one of those things we will never know. But the fact is that since now, during that period, after that, actually, before that, during that, after that, I have been in regular touch with my counterparts. So other colleagues have spoken to their counterparts. At various points of time, the Chinese have given us different explanations. None of them are really tenable. Since then, we have been trying to disengage because both of us have a forward deployment ahead of our regular military bases. We have been partially successful out of whatever, maybe let's say 10 places. We would have resolved 7, 8 of these forward deployments. There are still some we were discussing. But the basic problem, which is a very large number of troops are massed on the border in violation of agreements, continues. Now, what it has done is it has completely, in a way, impacted the relationship because it's very hard to try to be normal with a country which has broken agreements and which has done what it has done. So if you look at the last 3 years, it's a very abnormal state. The contacts have been disrupted. Visits are not taking place. We have, of course, this high level of military tension. It has also impacted the perception of China in India. This perception was not positive in the 1960s and 70s because of the war we had in 62. But we had started to put that behind us when this has happened. So I think there's both an immediate issue as well as a medium-term issue, possibly longer than medium-term issue out there. And if you have really the 2 biggest countries of Asia, of the world, with that degree of tension between them, it has consequences for everybody else.